Oh, hi there. I'm Dylan Weaver, and welcome to the podcast, a place where great discussion and new analysis happens. But why take my word for it? You can see for yourself when you join us for today's Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And this week we are joined by not one, but two guests from the Adventures in Ideology podcast.
Woo!
Hello. Hi.
Greetings.
Our podcast is called Adventures in Ideology, like you said. We also listen to Adventures in Odyssey. Our focus is more on unpacking what is the message that they're trying to give to children here? And is it a good message? Is it harmful? How does it impact real people's lives? And how did these stories and messages impact our lives?
Yeah, that's a different spin on what we're doing, but not too far from it. I feel like we inevitably, with this show being what it is, we're gonna butt up against that sort of stuff.
Totally.
Yeah,
we love it.
Did you how much did you listen to Adventures in Odyssey?
So when we were young, we were dirt poor. So we had, I think, maybe the first 3 or 4 sets of the cassettes, and listened to those over and over and over. And then we were on a Bible college campus. My dad was doing his master's at the seminary there, and they had a radio station. So they would play the newer episodes every Saturday. So then we would listen to that. Charis would record them on her tape player.
It would. I was obsessive about it because we couldn't afford them, but I needed to have them just in case I wanted to listen.
No, I mean, that just sounds like, adapting to the situation at hand. That seems like creative problem solving.
Also being a child of the 90s.
Yeah.
Recording things off the radio.
No, I know. I was spoiled to have Adventures in Odyssey on the internet for most of the time I was listening.
Nice.
Which is
how old are you?
Yeah. The age-old question. I am 23.
Oh.
I turn 21 tomorrow.
Wow. Okay.
I started this podcast when I was not even 18 years old. So let that say what it will about me as a person.
I was noticing your podcast timeline because we actually started recording our episodes around the same time you guys launched, but we were not ready to actually launch. I had a new baby and
I was working in a church at the time and didn't want to get fired, so we had to just wait. Yeah, we had to wait until I shifted careers a little bit.
So we ended up launching.
That's a great idea.
We launched way later, but our first episode is from 2017. Not many people know that. Yeah.
It was right after the election.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It was still relevant when we posted it, so.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Yeah.
It's the benefit of, commentating on something that's 30 years old at this point.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There must have been something in the zeitgeist, though.
Yeah.
We were thinking of the same idea.
It's weird watching, because I'm watching through The Simpsons now, seeing the overlap, especially in an episode like this. Even the sound effects seem kind of similar.
Absolutely.
This is Andrew's new take that he's got to work into every episode.
Every single episode, man. It's all I've got going for me. I mean, it could be its own segment, but
it should be its own
segment. The Simpsons.
They are
Charis
the same
is also
thing.
obsessed with The Simpsons.
I am.
Wait, seriously? Oh, beautiful.
Yes, absolutely. It's my favorite.
Okay, awesome.
If I don't have a
Dylan's the weird
conversation-
one.
Yeah, Dylan, get with the program.
Oh, man.
I frequently get like Instagram messages from Charis that's just a clip from a Simpsons episode.
Nice.
Or if
Look, they
we're
predicted everything.
they literally.
And Odyssey ripped off everything. So it works out.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to rewatch them now with the frame of Odyssey in mind. Thank you for that suggestion.
Man. I mean,
Hey, Twin Peaks doesn't hurt it either, so,
That's true.
Yeah. I'm sensing like an Andrew Charis spin-off podcast. Simpsons. Talk about the Simpsons.
It definitely could be.
I'm all over that.
Could be arranged. I don't know if
Yeah.
this podcast ever dies, which it doesn't seem to.
Adventures in Springfield?
Yeah.
Is that what that's what Simpsons is in, right?
Yep.
Come on,
Springfield.
Springfield.
look at that. Occasionally I know stuff. All right. So the episode at hand this week is called Choices. It's episode 68. It was written and directed by Phil Lawler, with whom we have no gripes at all.
When I listened to this episode at the beginning, I was like, is that Phil Lawler? As the waiter at the beginning of the episode? Did you notice?
Think,
it is.
yeah,
I looked it up. It 100% is him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was listening and I thought it was Chuck Bolte, who was George Barkley. Because I was like, there's a little bit here but no, I'm seeing that now. It is Phil Lawler, which makes sense. Because I just wanted to kind of ask what led you to choose this episode.
So this episode is actually probably one of the reasons why we started our podcast in the first place.
Wow, and you didn't decide to cover it on your own one? You were we'll
Right?
Oh.
We're going chronologically, which, we may
Right.
decide to change that because there's
a
so
lot.
many episodes.
And a lot of them are
There
just
is.
boring.
Yeah. I appreciated that when I came across you guys and I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like going through chronologically, but also not feeling like you have to cover every episode.
Yes.
This seems like a healthy approach.
I think I'm very type A. Like I have a science background, so I just need it to be organized. And I think we
Structure.
might start doing fewer episodes from each season though, because there's just they're making episodes faster than we can
Record them.
record our own episodes. So
Yeah.
at this rate,
and especially
Yeah.
especially in those first couple years of the show where it was like an episode every week. Like they put out a new episode, like they put out like 50 episodes a year for the first like 3 years. And it's like, that's
It's a lot.
It's so much.
and we are an every other week podcast, and we take breaks in between albums.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
We've also
the more sane approach than what we've done, which is actually, I guess, an episode every week for 3 years. So basically what Adventures in Odyssey did that I was just making fun of them for.
That's amazing.
So,
but
Apple hasn't fallen that far, I guess.
this is the episode where Lucy is asked to write a report about evolution, and she doesn't believe in evolution. So she has this kind of this moral crisis that she has to work through. And this episode stuck with me a lot as a child. And it may be part of the reason why I actually went into science because I think what I realized at a young age from things like this episode is how powerful science is and how much of a threat it is seen to be by Christians. And also how much it was not understood. Like in the church growing up, everyone was afraid of it and like, oh no, it's not real. God, only God. But also no one could explain to me like anything about science,
Yep.
But this episode in particular, like the way Lucy handles this, I remember just really admiring her as a child. Like she stuck to her guns, and then she wrote a Christian perspective on why she didn't believe in evolution. And this influenced me so much that when I was in grade 10, which is much too old to be so influenced by Adventures in Odyssey, I, for a biology class, completely unprompted, like it wasn't, I didn't even need to write a report about evolution. I got to pick what I got to write about. And so I wrote a report, quote unquote, debunking evolution. And it was, it was like one of my smarmier moments in life. But it was directly influenced by this episode.
Oh, that's such the classic, growing up in the evangelical context, yes, I must write my dissertation on why evolution is bad. I feel like we've all had a version of that in our lives.
Yeah, no, it's
I had to take a stand, and so it felt very important to me. But I know that, when you're in high school and involved in youth group and stuff, you're getting so much messaging that's you have to take a stand. You need people to know that you're a Christian, if you don't say that you're a Christian, then basically you're denying that you know God and you are a tool for Satan. So you need to make sure to take every opportunity to let everyone know that you're a Christian in every way.
Yeah.
So that was one way.
Oh, yeah. So all my siblings were homeschooled in elementary school, and I was the one public school kid. So there was a lot of spread in the gospel pressure there.
Are you the youngest?
No, second to youngest though. Second youngest of 4.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, no.
How did you get?
I'm just the heathen.
How did you get out of homeschooling?
Just the heathen of the family. Yeah.
Your mom was like, I can't handle you. Go to public school.
No, honestly, it was because I was very comfortable talking to adults.
Oh, yeah.
I was one of 4, so if I needed something, I had to say something. So yeah, no, I just I made it work.
And you were just like, I need to go to public school.
Plus, I was very extroverted in comparison as well. But my oldest sister is very extroverted as well, and she did private school all the way through. But that was in the 90s. There's no accounting for parenting in the 90s, It's just it was what it was. They were doing the best with what they had.
We understand.
Was that private Christian school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there any other kind?
Yeah, they went to a local Christian school. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. We have those.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And then were the rest of your siblings homeschooled all the way through?
Yes. Yeah. Some of them have been on the show, actually. Well, a good amount of them.
Yeah. Shout out to Grace, who was last week's guest.
How are they now?
Oh, they're doing well, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all grown through it. Yeah. No, it's been a lot.
I know that's a hard transition to go from being homeschooled. Yeah.
No. I mean, we're very socially adaptable because we've all done so many extracurriculars throughout elementary school and stuff. We never really fit in at the homeschool stuff and doing the homeschool thing. And so it was kind of getting a break from that, which was nice. So everybody seems to have done pretty well since college and everything. It was more at least for me, it was for academic purposes. There was other social issues and stuff that influenced the decision for other people as well, for the other children. But yeah, it worked out pretty well. Is that much of a thing up there? Homeschooling?
Christian school is a big thing here. We are.
So is homeschooling.
Okay. In Christian circles. We're in
that
Alberta,
Venn diagram,
which is a very conservative. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, kind of the Bible Belt of Canada, if we had one.
Okay. Wonderful.
So we had the most recent uproar for Christians was that the previous government wanted to allow gay-straight alliances in schools and for the teachers to not report on students who decided to attend them.
Oh, so you mean basic decency?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, like to not out children to their parents if they don't feel safe talking to their parents about it. And that was a huge uproar here.
Goodness.
Yeah, I was working in a church around the time of that uproar, so I got to hear a lot of garbage beliefs about it. It was bonkers.
That must have been wonderful for your mental health.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
I didn't go home and
definitely
cry
takes a toll
myself
on
to
you.
sleep every night.
No, not once.
Yeah.
What's your what denomination of church were you working at?
It was a Fellowship of Christian Assemblies, which is like Pentecostal,
Oh,
basically. Yeah.
Gah, spicy.
It's just a
Gotta love
different name for it. Yeah.
Yep.
Would be like Pentecostal or like Foursquare, maybe. I'm not sure how it overlaps.
In my mind, they're
States.
all the same.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, unless you're united, you're probably pretty conservative.
Yeah.
All right. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Oh, okay. There is one other dumb thing I feel like we have to address off the top, which is the original air date for this episode is April 1st, 1989.
That's amazing.
April Fools.
Wow.
The episode came out on April Fool's Day.
That's amazing.
And I just, yeah.
You're
How
getting
much-
punked with the
How
truth.
much better would it have been if she had like decided to write the paper about evolution, and then at the very end, Chris was just like, April Fools.
She decided to write the paper, and then it follows her timeline. She becomes like a leading genetic scientist and just contributes widely to the field. And it has like this incredibly successful career. And then it ends, and Chris is like, April Fools, it's all a lie.
That's not how it works.
I mean, look, does it have a traumatic fake out dream sequence? Absolutely. So
Seriously.
we're not that far off.
That was traumatic as a child.
Yeah.
That stuck with me.
That was
man.
that is some Blackguard level fright in my soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
Make the right decision. Do the right thing.
Oh, my word.
How did they get
gonna
my
haunt
sleep
me.
paralysis demon?
How did they know?
All right. Well, with that kind of set up off the top, let's roll the promo and then get into the nitty gritty of what transpired here.
Coming up on Adventures in Odyssey, what would you do if someone in authority told you to do something you didn't believe was right?
Dad, they want me to write about evolution.
That's the question Lucy has to decide. Will she make the right choice?
Anyone who doesn't know how to make right decisions has no place at Wit's End.
Find out next time on Adventures in Odyssey.
That's fun.
I love that.
It's the perfect way to market this episode, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually highlights one
So
of the
much
main issues I had with the episode.
Yeah.
Please do share.
I don't know what. Do you usually do like an overview of the episode, or can I jump into some of my beefs?
Oh, look, jump right into
It's
the
a
beef,
conversation
because-
about.
Yes, exactly. We want to
great.
talk about the episode.
Even the way they frame it in the promo, like, will she make the right choice? Like, there is a right choice. There's they talk about like, there's always a right choice and a wrong choice. And I remember this kind of teaching being just paralyzing as a child, and even as like a young person, and before I left the church, and even still sometimes, this like, oh no, you don't want to make the wrong choice, when 9 times out of 10, it doesn't matter. There is no wrong choice. But
Oh, absolutely.
in this, like, they're so focused on making the right choice. And when she finally goes to Sunday school and Mr. Whitaker is talking about making the right choice, and he says some really nuanced things, like the right choice for some people might not be the right choice for other people. Loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I was so surprised to
Right?
see that.
And then he says, sometimes the difference between the right choice and the wrong choice is like very small. or something. I don't know. I'm going from memory here, but
yeah,
but then
yes,
if
it's a thin line or something.
And if it's that close between making the right choice and the wrong choice, that's very stressful for children. And if it's that close, then probably neither one is right or wrong in real life. You know?
Yeah, you're speaking my thoughts aloud right now.
This moralizing everything, like, do you want a banana or an apple? There's no wrong choice here. Like, it's not like, okay, I need to pray to God and ask, like, what is the right fruit for me to eat right now? I don't want to make the wrong choice. But the way they frame it in this episode is like literally everything. You know, there's a difference between nutrient profiles. If I eat the wrong one, then I'm going to get scurvy. Like, no, you won't. You're fine.
The baffling thing, too, is like there are moments where I'm like, oh, like, so her dad in that first conversation where she comes home and she's like, her dad's basically like, look, like, I'm not going to tell you what to do here. Like, I'm going to let you make that choice for yourself. And I'm like, okay, I'm into that. But the stakes are so high.
They make the stakes so high, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
But
for sure.
That conversation with her dad was one of, I mean, we've listened to quite a few episodes now, and I have to say that is the best parenting interaction that I've seen so far. Like, her dad is respectful to her. He encourages her to make up her own mind, and he's like supportive and coaching in like all the best parenting ways. And is like, you know what? He's basically says there's no right or wrong here. Whatever you decide, we'll support you.
Right. Oh, and it's so good.
It's so good. It's such a good moment. And I listened to that. I was like, wow, like, this is great. But they don't. Then they kind of just like move on from that. And it's like, that's irrelevant and doesn't even matter. Right. Because yes, there is a right and a wrong one. And Lucy has to carry the burden of that herself, you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And like the thing, we talk a lot about like the show wanting to like have its cake and eat it. Mm-hmm, and so it's that thing where it's like, hey, like we're going to have this, good father-daughter interaction where like her dad says the right things and like parents well. But then we're also going to have this dream sequence and never like really refute that dream sequence. Mm-hmm, like be like, that's a dream. And like, maybe you're supposed to read that as like, oh yes, this is like obviously a heightened version of reality, but they never go and say like, and the takes that like Whit said in this dream sequence were bad.
Yeah. No, it's seen at, I remember as a kid hearing it and thinking like, I knew it was a dream, and they use scriptures and thinking that was like what I'm supposed to be taking away. Like there's so many scriptures kind of thrown around in this episode to contradictory, like it's funny that they don't see how much they pick and choose which scriptures to use when they do an episode like this, where they're like picking scriptures to use to support all points of view.
It is. Yeah, there's a lot. So like loosely, the plot of the episode is like Lucy's in class learning about the Big Bang. She's mad about it. She's like yelling in the back of the classroom, heckling it to her neighbors, which like relatable, maybe not for that, but like anytime you're watching a video in a classroom, like you gotta be making jokes to the guy next to you. That's a given, but
mandatory.
But then she gets pulled out afterwards, and the teacher's like, hey, look, like you've got to write a paper about, your thoughts on evolution, which is then going to get published in a newspaper that is for teachers.
Yeah.
And she...
And by the way, it's a school assignment and you'll be graded and you can't say no. Like, what?
Or you'll fail.
Yeah.
It's wild that it's like, here is an extra assignment. It's going to count towards your grade. You can't decline it.
Yeah, that was insane to me.
It's an honor for you to be like chosen to be the one. Like I submitted you for this behind your back because I think you're such a great student. But no, you can't get out of it.
And I also was really frustrated by the fact that like when she later on she says no to the assignment, spoiler, and he's like, yeah, I thought you were going to say no. And then when she explains the reason why she says no, he's like, oh, I just thought you were trying to get out of doing schoolwork. And I'm like, why would you think your straight A student with the highest GPA in your class is just trying to get out of schoolwork? Like that in no way makes any sense.
But also, I just think it's so funny that like, here, you're a good student. Here, your reward is more homework.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
preparing her for society.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Oh, yeah. If you look, guys, if you do well, you're going to get more thrown on your plate. That's just the world.
Yeah. More responsibility for less pay.
No pay.
Yeah. It's just all of the like logistics of this thing off the top are like them clearly setting this up to be like the worst situation possible for Lucy.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is another problem I have with the way a lot of these episodes are written is like, I mean, I get they're trying to write a plot that's like relatable for children, but I feel like there's a fine line between like writing a story that's relatable for children and just kind of like torturing children, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, no, for sure. Like, and right, that kind of leads into this nightmare scene she has after having a nice conversation with her dad, who, well, that is a great conversation. It is really bizarre that he is voiced by Nathan Carlson, who goes on to voice the frickin' what's his name? The bad guy in Blackguard, who's Richard Maxwell.
Yes.
Who
Maxwell, yeah.
Like Maxwell, is like, you know, a college kid who's flirty with middle schooler Lucy in ways that are really gross. And we covered last year. And it's the same guy doing not that different a voice in this scene.
Yes.
And it was just, it was an unfortunate reminder in a scene that I otherwise do really like.
That's gross.
It is. It's gross. I did also want to talk about some of the stuff that her dad said, because I appreciated the way he supported her. But then some of the things he talked about I thought were problematic. The way, because he was talking about how, you know, sometimes I have to do things I don't want to do at work. My boss is over me. Anyone in authority over you has been put there by God. So if you disobey them, that is sin. And that, to me, just was like a million red flags. And I know this teaching is like so common, but no.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of teaching, like those in authority over you are put there by God, gets so much airtime in churches and in places because it's so important for them to like maintain the power structure. Because if people started to think, like, wait a minute, these people are fallible and maybe they don't have my best interest at heart. And, you know, then people would start to organize and work toward change. And so these kind of messages are very insidious, I think. And they're all over the place in Adventures in Odyssey.
Oh, for sure. And like the thing that's funny is like oh yes, you know, respect authority. And later in Wit's, you know, I don't know, nightmare, like the nightmare with Wit, he says, he talks about like how her teacher is essentially like a government authority that she needs to submit to. And I'm just like, I love that this is the messaging. And yet like the people in churches were the ones not wearing a mask when when that was being a government mandate. Like, it's just like, it's that like, well, and it's the key thing of like this episode coming out in 1989. It's like, it was probably recorded right around like the end of Reagan, beginning of Bush.
Yeah.
Like it's a 12 years of Republicans being like the head of state.
Yeah.
So like, I feel like they are probably way more comfortable being like, yes, the importance of submitting to your government when like they're under, a government that is, when they're under a government that has similar beliefs to them and is like holding up the same things they are. It's way easier to be like, submit to that.
It's amazing how quickly it switches from like the Lord has put our leader in charge to, I don't know, like Trump is still the secret leader and Biden stole the election, you know?
Yep. For sure.
Excuse me? If God put Trump in charge, then God put Biden in charge.
Yep. Oh yeah, that is. Oh man, there's so much there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just cracked me up that that's like part of the plot of this episode is being like, yes, you have to like submit to your authority.
Yeah.
But part of that is couched in a dream sequence that may or may not matter.
Yeah, but really does.
Yeah,
right.
But covers
that a child for sure cannot distinguish. And even I, as an adult listening, I'm like, so are they saying that this is all bad or that only some of this is bad? Because I think it's some, but it is unclear.
Well, there's so much anxiety in that entire dream sequence. And this whole episode is just like an anxiety inducing episode. But for me, I think I internalized it as if you make a wrong decision, you will regret it for the rest of your life. And so it was like, I can never make a wrong decision on anything ever, because what if I do and then I regret it forever? And like, then I have to carry around that regret. And like, it just like builds up as this anxiety in your head, and it becomes like you just get overwhelmed and then just like, I don't want to do anything.
You get paralyzed to make any decision.
Yeah. I mean, Odyssey loves that line right there. There's a Connie episode. Oh, is it Tangled Web? And remembered it all for the rest of their life or whatever.
Like oh my God, that episode. Yeah.
Yes.
That is,
when we did that episode, our big takeaway is that wit is a giant spider weaving webs to catch people in.
Yes. I mean, yeah, that is, wit is so complex because, I mean, in the same way that like a lot of the writing is, where I'm like, boy, is this bad. And then occasionally stuff said, like we talked about, like it's coming up later in this episode where I'm like, that's kind of good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think
and it's just the crystallization of that.
The really insidious thing for me about wit is that he really gets used as the mouthpiece of God.
Yes.
He is the direct line to God and basically might as well be God in the episodes. And that makes a lot of what he does and says really dangerous.
Yeah, no, for sure. That is like the issue with wit is we've joked so much about him being God, and especially there was a point, I feel like, I don't know, kind of mid 90s to like early aughts of Odyssey, kind of during the Paul Herlinger era especially, where they let wit be a little bit more fallible in ways that were like cool and like I came to really appreciate, or even like during the like portion where there is no wit and we have Jack and Jason, who are both very much portrayed as flawed characters.
Yeah.
But then but these early episodes, and especially new stuff, wit is just like, he is God. Like there's no distinction here.
We haven't listened to anything past probably the mid 90s. So we have no idea what is going on in Odyssey currently.
Oh man, consider yourselves lucky. And oh man, if you ever, obviously you're going through the show at your own pace and whatever, but if you ever start to brush up against some of that stuff and want someone to unpack it with, it's just, I
we'd
have a lot of thoughts. Like,
we'll definitely have you on our show for sure.
And that's part of our like slight generational divide here and whatnot is going to be that like my like peak Odyssey is my peak Odyssey comes a little bit after yours, and then through doing this show, we've unfortunately touched on some of the most recent stuff just because we decided like, hey, it would be fun to talk about stuff that we've never heard. And then we immediately realized, okay, this might be a problem.
Yeah.
Is it the same writers still writing it, or have they like, because it was Phil Lawler and Paul McCusker?
Yeah, so McCusker is not involved anymore. He was involved up until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or something. Okay. Somewhere in there, he stepped away. Phil Lawler is still the main guy behind it. He took a long hiatus in like the early mid 2000s.
Okay.
Phil Lawler was gone for a while, so there hasn't been anybody who's been with the show the whole way through. But Dave Arnold and Marshall Younger are two other. I think they started like late 90s and are current writers.
We'll get there.
So kind of from this era of the show, Lawler's the only one who's consistent, and McCusker was up until somewhat recently.
Right. It's McCusker who wrote like the Darian's Rise and like the other books, right?
Yep. Yeah. He wrote that kind of a lot of other stuff for Focus. Lawler left to go create 321 Penguins with Phil Vischer and VeggieTales guys.
Yep.
And so he was gone through that. But then McCusker's whole thing is interesting. I mean, my feelings towards Phil Lawler are very rough. My feelings towards McCusker are a little bit better.
Yeah.
He still has some serious clunkers and stuff that I deeply disagree with, but he also writes a really good mystery. So, you know.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's kind of been our feeling with it as well, that McCusker's like slightly better because he at least includes women in his episodes.
As women listening to these episodes, representation is very poor.
Yeah.
Yes. And the way women are used, this is something that we frequently notice in the episodes. Women are props to help men succeed in whatever, either through their death or dismemberment, whatever. Things happen to women. Women are kind of expendable because they are like the launch pad for great men in these episodes.
So we have started a spreadsheet as we go through the episodes tracking character deaths and the reason for their death. Because it happens quite a lot. And most of the time it's women, and most of the time it's to prop up men.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great look.
Yeah. Like Whit, for example, is just surrounded by dead women.
Oh, there's so many dead women in his life. It is.
He has a trail.
Frankly,
of bodies.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's almost like a serial killer.
Oh yeah, give me the dark John Avery Whittaker fanfic.
Phil Lawler won't like that. No.
Yeah.
Someone should definitely do that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Okay, the other thing I really wanted to talk about with this episode was her Sunday school class.
Okay, yeah.
That's kind of the next big thing, right? So she wakes up, she had that dream, she still doesn't know what to do. She goes to Sunday school, and in her Sunday school class, I don't have these written down. I had them on my notes that are missing, but Mr. Whittaker gives them some different verses that somehow make it clear to her what she has to do. I'm not really sure. They were weird verses for that.
Right. Well, so but it starts with Marcia kind of asking about being in the world, but not of it. And then Whit is like, hey, there's no like precise verse that says that, but here's one that's kind of close, and reads that. And then he has Lucy read to like read the second half of it's Romans 14:23, and the portion that's read is everything that does not come from faith is sin,
which is very vague. I thought.
Yeah, and weirdly, that's what Lucy says, and like the class like nods, and then Whit says, "Oh yeah, I guess that is kind of vague. Whatever."
Let me tell you what it means as God speaking to you about this passage. I don't remember what he says about what it means. Do you remember?
I don't for sure.
I do.
Okay, yeah.
He says basically, if you truly believe in your heart that something is wrong and you do it anyway, that is sinning. Right. That's what he says.
Right.
That's
even if everyone else thinks it's okay.
Even if everyone else thinks it's okay, which again, I thought that was not bad. Like teaching children to trust their intuition is really good.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, that was my note as well, as I was like, oh, this is contrary to all my upbringing, which was like, don't trust yourself. You're a dirty sinner. Like,
but also
basically, he
undermines that message immediately. Like this episode undermines that message.
Oh, for sure.
So Mr. Whitaker, when he's talking about how do you make a decision and how do you make a decision between two things that are basically the same thing, but one of them is right and one of them is wrong, because you're going to have to do that all the time, which is a lie. He's like, first
there's
of all,
always two paths, and one leads you to hell and the other to heaven. Exactly. And there's no way to get off the path you're on.
Yeah. Once you pick, and every decision that you make, it's not, it can be right or wrong. And if you choose wrong once, good luck getting back onto right.
Well, this is where all my anxiety came from, I think, growing up.
Oh, yeah. No. Can definitely relate to that. The like terrifying like choice paralysis of what if I do something and it's outside of God's will?
Totally.
Okay, I told this story on our podcast, but I'll tell it here. Speaking of like things being outside of God's will, when I was younger, when I probably was like in grade 2 or grade 3, I would try and trick God, because I was like, God knows everything, right? So I'm like, I would plan. I'm like, okay, in the morning, I'm going to ride my bike to school. Okay, God, I'm going to ride my bike to school in the morning. And then like secretly in my mind, I'm like, okay, but then I'm not going to ride my bike to school. I'm going to like get on my bike and then like start riding it and then like turn around and take my bike back and then walk to school. And of course, it's all in your mind. God's supposed to be able to know what's in your mind anyway. So
right.
The next day, I would like get up, be like, yeah, totally. I'm riding my bike to school, get on my bike, ride my bike, like pedal 5 times, turn around, take it back to my yard, like drop it off, start walking. And then I was like, oh no, but now God thinks I'm going to walk. So then like turn around, get on my bike. I would try and like psych out God. Which you just can't do. It's like impossible. But as a kid,
I was
like,
good.
I don't want to be controlled like this.
I need to establish my free will.
That might epitomize me as a human being.
Oh man, that's incredible.
Oh. That's why you're not the one that went to Bible college for 4 years, and I am.
I did not.
Oh man, the other thing that Whit kind of hits on is like he lays out. Yeah, the thing we said earlier about like what's right for one person might not be what's right for another. And then he's like, if you're struggling to know what to do, pray, talk it over with people you trust, read the Bible. And I'm like,
but what was the order that he said that in? Did he say pray first or read the Bible first?
He said that is the order.
Oh, was it that order? Okay.
He says pray. He says talk it over with people you trust. And then he's like, and of course, like, make sure it's in line with scripture or whatever at the end. Yeah. He kind of doubles down on the last one, but he does give it that order. And that was another one where I was like, okay, I appreciate that as advice, like on how to make a decision.
I have a lot of issues with, remember my perspective. I am outside of the evangelical church now and have been for years.
Right.
So take it with a grain of salt. But I always feel a little bit wary when people are like, read the Bible, just read the Bible. The Bible will reveal everything to, this idea. I mean, I feel like in some ways Christians have made the Bible God.
For sure.
Like, it is its own idol, But there's also this thing in evangelicism, like they believe you read the Bible and God will reveal himself to you. But there's no recognition that, like, when you read the Bible, you're bringing yourself and your history and everything to that reading and to that interpretation. And so what you're reading is yourself, it's a reflection of what's going on in you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it's that thing that like drives me crazy with like people, teaching on biblical interpretation or whatnot, or saying like, well, we have like, this has been the read of it throughout history. So like your read is clearly can't be right. And I'm like, well, like that undermines the whole idea here. Yeah. Which is like, if you're saying like, oh, no, it does mean one thing, and that thing is like Christian orthodoxy, and like you have to be in line with that, then it's like, okay, so what is like, if I don't know, it's that thing where like, it's the constant struggle, I feel like, in the church between like, are we like this big, organization trying to control you, or do we believe in individualism? Like, do we care about, people as a person, like people individually and what they believe, or are we concerned about like, keeping you in line with like the correct thoughts?
And I was just going to say, the crazy thing is that even in the Sunday school classroom, Whit touches on a verse that is very open to interpretation. Everything that is not of faith is sin. That's very unclear. That can be interpreted many ways.
No context.
Yep.
No context.
I know. He's like, Lucy, read the second half of that verse, starting with the word everybody or everything. And I'm like, all right, I understand that we have 23 minutes to get this message out, but wow, that is bad Bible.
It is.
Yeah. Like there's no, and it's like, it's kind of on the nose the way he does it, because he addresses it as, oh yeah, this is kind of a vague verse, but let me tell you what it means. But it's like, yes, but there's so many vague verses in the Bible that then some guy comes along and is like, here's what it actually means.
And this is where this thing that I was talking about, like this person read this verse and it meant something to them because of their background and their experience. They understood it in a specific way. But also, like, we also need to keep in mind that a lot of these translations were translated by people who already had an agenda in mind, who like specifically changed things so that they would be more like complementarian, like erase women from discipleship and leadership and things like this. So it's like, it's through so many, it's so distorted through so many lenses.
Yeah, the Bible is never meant to be used as a weapon. It's really upsetting. I have, a lot of experience with that as well. I'm sure you do. I find it wonderful how they can, they pick and choose, but they will not admit picking and choosing.
Yes.
And to others.
Mm-hmm. But they're happy to call anyone else out on it.
Oh yeah, right, yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah. No, it's very difficult, and like as somebody that's in school for counseling and everything, like learning a lot about the faulty mental processes that come along with the all or nothing thinking of you're either living your life and adding to your sin total that will get weighed against you at the end of time every day. Or you don't care about God. Like, you look back at that, you're like, oh, yeah, maybe that did do something,
the only two options. Like,
and if that doesn't give you anxiety,
we're the good guys, right? Like, we're the good guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have you seen that Monty Python sketch where they're like, it's like are they Nazis? They're like Nazi soldiers, and they're like, are we the baddies?
Yeah, very much so. Very much the baddies. Yeah, no, this episode was very very triggering in that respect. I was like, oh my goodness, this is kind of where it all comes from, I think, maybe.
I also found like the way Lucy was at the beginning when they're watching the movie about evolution is like how she's like, everyone knows the earth was created by God, the universe was created by God. And I'm like, don't you think like if everyone knew that, then there wouldn't be people looking into these kind of things? Like the on one level, I appreciated her like level of conviction, but I also felt really frustrated by how basically they're like, you should be closed to any ideas that the church did not specifically tell you to be open to.
And really disrespectful about it. It's okay to be disrespectful if you disagree with their belief. And that comes across a lot in evangelical circles of people who are just rude when someone has a differing belief.
And I also feel like I have to say, as the person with the science, actually, Andrew or Dylan, did you have a science background?
Computer science, but that's not science.
I mean, it's math. It's mathy.
It counts. Yeah.
Yes, it's mathy. Like I'm very analytical, but I don't have like a proper science background.
Okay.
Dylan's way more scientific than me.
Andrew's the feelings guy. I'm the facts guy.
Which one of you is the Cancer?
A good pair. That would be me, the facts guy.
The facts guy. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I felt the way they portrayed evolution was so disingenuous. And I remember, I felt this growing up, but didn't know it until I actually went to university and took evolutionary biology and genetics and learned a lot about where these quote unquote theories come from. And how compelling the evidence is for them. And the way they talk about them as, like, even the teacher at the end is like, it's just a theory. But in science, to be considered a theory, the only reason evolution is not a law is because it's very, very difficult for something to become a law. Like, we have gravity is a law because it always is. And we know that, and we have proved it mathematically, and we understand it very, very, very well. Evolution is a quote unquote theory, but it is basically accepted as a law. It's not just, it's just a theory, not in the same way as if you're doing a scientific experiment and you have a hypothesis. It's not even close to equivalent, but that's how Christians treat it. Oh, it's just a theory. It's not a theory in the way that you understand it. But also you don't understand how science works. So
it's a theory in the same way, vaccine efficacy is a theory.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man. No, actually, I was going to say, is evolution the root of Christians not believing scientists? Then I remembered Galileo. So no, it's just always.
Oh, no.
Yeah, right.
It's just always the conflict.
Yeah, and this conflict kind of amazes me because it's not everywhere. Like, there's plenty of Christians who also, quote unquote, believe in science. Like, it's a weird thing for me for people to say, like, I don't believe in evolution or I don't believe in science. I'm like, what do you mean? It's literally happening all around you all the time. You could use the same thing they always say, like, well, just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean he doesn't exist. But in the case of science, like, it's actually physically manifested in the world around you. It's not even like an invisible being, So that one always gets me. Like, what do you mean you don't believe in science?
It's this stubborn, like, masculine, just unwillingness to synthesize anything, where it's like, no, the Earth is not, several billion years old like the rocks tell us. It's like 3,000 years old because we wrote a book, 2,000 years ago that was pretty good.
The idea of like using the Bible, and this is again where I think like the Bible has become such an idol, because like if you're using the Bible as your frame of reference for literally everything, that means that you have to literally ignore the world around you in order to make some things work.
And ignore the fact that like readings of scripture have changed over the years, have evolved through translation. Like we have, there's so much more like than just taking things at a literal face value, understanding just even the basics of like, there are different literary types within scripture of just like,
I know,
like the stuff that people just flat out like miss or are ignorant of and just hold fast to, well, like what, God said this and, God doesn't change. So whatever this thing says in the way that I am interpreting this and the people who have come before me have interpreted this, like that's got to be the end all be all fact.
Oh, yeah. I mean, are you familiar with their Absolute Truth series, The Truth Chronicles?
Is that the Truth Project? Or is that a different thing? Sorry.
No, it's the same thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well, so Focus on the Family's Truth Project, they did an episode or an album of Adventures in Odyssey to accompany it called The Truth Chronicles.
That's amazing. Hold on. I'm writing it down.
Okay, wait. What?
So we actually, after Christmas on our Patreon, we're going to be going through the Truth Project. So
wow.
This is going to be a fun thing to add.
This is important then.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is perfect.
Hey, happy to help.
It's 12 episodes, I think. Only 9 of them only 3 of the episodes on the album ever have aired on the radio. The rest of them are only available on like the CD and the subscription club online.
Oh man.
Are you guys subscribed to that?
Yeah,
unfortunately.
And I feel bad about it every day.
Like so far we've made sure that we don't give them any money, but
we might have to.
Well, so if you would like, you can create child accounts off of your parent account. And so I am happy to make you guys an account with its own login and stuff that won't expose my personal info that you can use. And
do you have unlimited child accounts?
That would be amazing.
I think you have like 10. Do you understand how many children? Andrew, you have so many children.
A quiver full.
These are homeschooled families.
It's glorious.
Yeah. That's amazing.
So
it's made for the dudders.
Yes, exactly.
And then some.
Yeah. But yeah, I will happily.
We would love that.
Happily give you a login.
That would be amazing.
Anything I can do to spread this thinner and feel less horrible about the money that I
love
give
that
them.
so much.
Thank you.
You got it. So
amazing. I had no idea.
Okay, can we talk about the teacher, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, like, the idea he comes to at the end, he could have figured that out in 3 minutes, I think.
The previous conversation?
Like, if he had thought about it, yeah.
Yeah.
She says, I'm a Christian, I can't write about this, and you go, his solution is just write about it from a Christian perspective. That's the genius idea.
If he would have asked any prompting questions initially, rather than for some insane reason assuming that she was trying to get out of an assignment, which makes no sense, then there would be no episode.
The girl with the highest grades.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. And it is really, I think it's a funny contrast from this, 1989 episode from Adventures in Odyssey, which is extremely conservative, but still taking a more like nuanced view of a teacher than like God's Not Dead.
Oh.
Like, because that's like the same, like this episode has the same premise as that movie, I assume. I have not watched it.
You haven't watched it?
You have to watch it.
Okay, sidebar.
It's a pivotal piece of cinema.
Sidebar?
Cinnamon. What?
We have a group here of XVs, and we do Christian movie night. So we watch Christian movies. We get like bring snacks and drinks and we watch Christian movies, and then we just kind of like, whenever anyone gets really riled up, we just pause and like we get all our stuff out, and it's like the most cathartic thing. But the best movies for that are the God's Not Dead ones. There's so much. We're thinking of doing trying to do a Discord viewing. So if we do that, we'll send you guys the link, because it is worth. They're worth watching. I'm
there in a heartbeat.
You'll be mad. Yeah. I'm gonna tell you, you'll
like
be mad.
As a big fan of like watching bad movies with friends, that is appealing. And I had other scarring Christian movies that I grew up on, but like God's Not Dead was well enough after the fact that I felt literally no compulsion to watch it.
It's so cathartic. Join us.
But yeah, I think the point I was trying to make is just like, yeah, I like that this teacher's like, yeah, I'm like trying to be a good teacher and do my job. Yeah. And if you think that this is going to be bad, then like that goes like, if you're, I don't want you to do something that goes against your personal beliefs. If I did, I'd be going against everything I stand for as a teacher. Yeah. And I'm like, I just appreciate that.
Yeah, I liked that they painted the person that way. I just wish they would, like, as Christians, would also be that way of like, not making everyone else. A double standard?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, you might be asking for too much.
You're right,
I agree.
Yeah.
But I feel like also the way the whole episode was framed was like, anyone who doesn't believe the way you believe is going to be incredibly unreasonable, and you should be very afraid to say no to them.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And he totally wasn't. Like, it wasn't a big deal.
Right. Yeah, it's like, well, it's the whole thing of like, it's like that, like an episode of Child's Television or whatever, where they like build up panic about how bad something is going to be the whole episode, and then they go and it's fine.
Yeah.
Except that like, that's not the takeaway here. Well,
and in my experience, the only people that have reacted negatively or had like a really I've had a really difficult time with when presenting a differing opinion have been Christians. Like anyone else, you present something different and they're like, oh, that's nice. Or they'll ask you questions or, share their perspective. But Christians are like, well, no, that's dumb. And I'm going to argue with you about it until you see my side.
Yeah. Or just give up.
Yeah.
That is
wear you down.
Unfortunate, but very true.
Have either of you read the book Jesus and John Wayne?
I haven't. I've seen it around. Is it worth a read?
It was very informative for me to read, because it talks a lot about the kind of founding principles of like evangelical culture and American nationalism in like the 70s. And so like little blurb from just the beginning of the book, because I haven't finished it, but basically like in Teddy Roosevelt era America, Christians were seen as wimpy, and so there was like a very significant effort made to like masculinize and just shoot some testosterone straight back into Christianity. And so with World War I and World War II, then you get Christian nationalism and militarism and authoritarianism all just in the same bed having a good time. And that's how we get a bunch of dads in the 80s that don't want to listen to their children's feelings.
That's how you get like gun church now.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, like, because I have people that I care about that are involved in circles like that. But yeah, it's really interesting to learn about as somebody that was, formally involved in it. And I would definitely recommend that book to you and anybody listening.
I'll add that to my list. Thanks.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I got to get around to that at some point. Andrew keeps talking it up, and I just I wish I read more.
Yeah.
Then maybe I'd read it.
I don't read it. I listen to it.
Yeah, I just don't.
It's the cheat code.
But Andrew, I can't take away time from podcasts to listen to a book.
I know. It's the continuous struggle I face in my life. That's why I don't listen to this show.
You also shouldn't.
Yeah, there is always that.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't know. Any other thoughts on like the literal text of this episode? Because I think we basically have gone through the whole plot at this point.
There's not a whole lot. It's a short episode comparatively to other episodes of Odyssey.
Mm-hmm,
yeah, or it's just there's not a lot of meat on the bones because it's very one note.
It is, one storyline.
Yeah.
I think though this episode really, when I was a kid, this episode really ingrained deeply in me like evolution is bad and wrong and contrary to Christianity. And, like growing up in the church, you have your like Ken Hams and I don't know, like these guys.
Like, we love Ken Ham. The infamous debate.
Yes, who like quote unquote debate people and quote unquote win. And are just assholes. And I remember like watching these guys in youth group and feeling so uncomfortable that this is the team that I'm supposed to be on and I'm supposed to be like proud of this because I always felt so ashamed of the smarminess,
Oh yeah.
And I think after high school I moved to England and I lived there for a few years and did like youth work and outreach, and I was with a church there. And one Sunday they had like basically all their elders and deacons come up to the front, many of whom were women.
Right on.
And talk about they talked about evolution. They were like, look, this is a thing that some people think is important, so we're just going to talk about this. And basically, all of them had a completely different opinion about it. And the head pastor was like, it's not clear. The scripture isn't clear about this. And it's kind of irrelevant. And so it doesn't matter. We all believe different things and we all respect what each other believes. And you know what? I wasn't there, so I don't know. And that was such a freeing moment for me. And then, I mean, that church was like a very healing experience for me in a lot of ways because they did a lot of, like, they were very socially active and like always doing stuff and like actually making a difference and working to help make the world better. And then when I moved back to Alberta, I like tried to have a conversation with the young adults pastor about some of these things and just was like always shut down. Like, no, that's not what we believe. Or, I'm like, maybe we should, are we trying to do outreach? Like, why don't we just take water bottles and go hand them out outside the clubs downtown? And that I was just like laughed out of the room, basically. Like, that's a terrible, because that was seen as like encouraging people to go drinking or whatever, And so finally,
we don't want to enable.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless
they're very, very adamant about not enabling anybody.
Unless they're abusers of and their church leaders.
Well, unless they're within the church.
Yeah. Unless they're one of us, I mean.
And that experience versus like what I experienced when I got back to North America, I finally, I was dating my now husband and we were going to this church, this young adults, and I would see how, I would ask questions and then just get completely shut down. The young adults pastor would be like, no, we don't believe that here. Steven, my husband, would ask basically the same question. He would be completely engaged. The guy tried to mentor him. He's like, we should go for coffee, and it was like so gross you know.
Yeah,
such a blatant double standard.
Yeah, it was like, so, I mean, that ultimately was the reason I finally left, like after trying and trying for so long. But it all kind of started with this idea of like evolution and seeing in that other church, like these people have different opinions about it. There's lots of different people that have different thoughts about it. There's no empirical evidence. You know, like God can use evolution. How big is God, right?
Right. Exactly. So, it's like
it kind of, and that's kind of what prompted me to go into biology. Like my undergrad degree is in biology, and then I have a master's in animal science. And, you know, like you learn a lot about evolution and things like that. And it makes a lot of sense. And it's hard to take Christians seriously then when they're like, evolution isn't real. Like,
yeah.
I have an undergrad in theology, and I can 100% definitively say I can't say anything. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think the jaw-dropping thing for me is the literal reading of Genesis and just being like, yes, this is exactly how it's happened.
A literal 7 days.
Despite the fact, literal 7 days, if this was written after the entirety of the Old Testament was written.
Yeah.
Like what we have today, like the order of operations here does not line up for like a first-hand account. Totally. You know, God told Moses about it when he hadn't eaten for a good long while. So
yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, and many cultures have oral traditions about creation that are so similar, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the flood myth is very common.
Yeah.
We've got the flood. We've got like, hey, you know, this is like, you know, the separation of what is like the waters above from the waters below, which is so like, you know, traditional, even just like, and that's why snakes no longer have legs. Like there's so much in there where you're like, are you going to read that as like literal or as like a mythological tale about like how the world came to be?
And not only that, you'll defend it at all costs. Like they are picking fights. Why?
Yeah.
Because also the thing you hit on earlier is it's like you should believe that God is big enough that this doesn't matter, right?
Yes.
Right.
Like you should be able, like your theology should be compatible with the idea that like, oh yeah, God could have created the earth however he freaking pleased. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
alas, you know, they gotta argue.
I took a class on creation when I was in Bible college. And there's like a bunch of different theories about just like what happened, like that each day, because there's that verse in the Bible that's like, to God, a day is 1,000 years and 1,000 years is a day. And so then some people interpret it through that lens. Some people say that there's a huge gap between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2. You know,
that's my favorite
Lilith,
of the ones where I'm like, wait, the gap theory literally helps no one.
Right?
That's I have done the creation theology crash course deal.
Yeah, right.
And it is some of that stuff.
The thing that drives me crazy is that they're like, well, it's one of these theories, but it can only be a theory within this framework. Like, we don't entirely know. Some people interpret it this way, some people interpret it that way, but it has to be one of these. It can't include evolution. Like,
yeah. So actually, that segues into something I think is super interesting, and I've dug deeply into kind of in the research for this episode. So I don't know if the two of you are familiar with, but the famous Adventures in Odyssey wiki. There's the discussion questions.
Yes.
Are you aware of these?
We try and talk about those at the end of our episodes. Yeah.
We often touch on them as well. But so these discussion questions are derived from at least in these early episodes, from Adventures in Odyssey, the Complete Guide, which is a book that I purchased secondhand so as not to give Focus more money. But that has like some trivia, but also like the episode summaries the writing, directing, credits, verse references is essentially the wiki before the wiki.
Right.
And it covers maybe the first 10 years of the show or something.
Nice.
And so I was reading through these questions, and the one I really want to hit on is number 4 says, is it possible on the wiki says, is it possible to be a Christian and still believe in the validity of evolutionary theory? Sub-question, could evolution be the means by which God created the world?
I saw that question.
And I was
That's interesting.
That is a very interesting question for them to have on here.
You see, that's how you can tell that
like,
Focus's views are not the views of the writers. They
I
just
was
sneak that little curveball in.
I was like, oh, what a, well-rationed question that also is kind of like the way it's worded in the way most of these questions are is kind of leading down an evolutionary track. And I'm like, that's interesting. So I open up the complete guide. That question is not in there.
Not surprised. Yeah. Not surprised.
I get nerdy and I'm like, okay, what's the deal here? And so I go into the wiki page edit history.
Amazing.
And on January 20th, 2010, those questions were added by a user who was not signed in. So it's just an IP address, which is the way Wiki defaults. This is the only contribution they have ever made, and they are located in New South Wales in Australia.
Nice.
Wow. That's amazing.
And so
they are doing the Lord's work.
Truly. So shout out to
that guy.
Mystery Australian guy who was like, you know what? The real way I'm going to make a difference is to climb in here to the wiki and add a question that just might broaden the horizons of people.
Good for him. Yeah, good for her.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
That is amazing.
So, I thought that would be a tidbit worth bringing up.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I saw that question and I was kind of shocked. I was like, obviously they've changed since this episode aired 30 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even them. It was a stranger from Australia.
Yeah.
Yep.
We love you, stranger from Australia.
Yeah. Thanks for leaving one contribution.
Yeah.
At least maybe they leave more and not do it and don't do it anonymously or do it through different IP addresses. Maybe it's a VPN situation.
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But thank you for this contribution if you're listening.
Hey, the Adventures in Odyssey podcast community is fairly small. It's large in the amount of people that care about it, but there's a lot of podcasts for not that many people. We'll say that.
Yes.
Are you guys connected with a lot of the other podcasts or any of the other podcasts?
We have tangential connections. We had one person from another podcast come on as a guest. We've corresponded with some others, but
nice.
We've been, we were mentioned in like a rundown of podcasts of Adventures in Odyssey podcasts on a different Adventures in Odyssey podcast, but there's no like real relationships there. This was kind of our first like, hey, you guys seem like you're coming at this from a more similar angle to us than a lot of the other podcasts.
We're
in
both
this
kind of
space.
black sheep in this world, this Adventures in Odyssey world. Yeah.
I just love that we got.
Well, it's nice not to be alone anymore. That's for sure.
You know, you've made it when you get like that strong of a negative response from somebody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gotten hate mail?
No, have you?
We've gotten some strongly worded emails and a couple not so great.
Do you check our email?
Yeah, I don't think anyone has access to our I haven't put it on our website.
Oh, no, but
I put up like a form on our website, but it's broken through WordPress, and so we can't actually see when people submit stuff to it. And we need to fix it. So
don't get anything on Instagram. So.
I went on a bit of an adventure to try and contact you guys.
Did you?
I was like,
no, I'm so
Twitter,
sorry.
Well, because I was just like, I came across it and I was like, wait, Twitter DMs are not open. There's no email on the website. There doesn't seem to really be a contact form. And I kind of had forgotten about it. And then I was on Instagram and happened to click on one of your posts and saw the DMs were open there. And I was like, oh, perfect. Let me see if I can, connect this way.
All right, so I need to fix that.
Yeah, we should maybe make ourselves slightly more accessible.
Our social media manager will be on that.
Yeah. She only works between the hours of 11 and 12 p.m.
Yeah, 11 and 11:05 on every other Thursday.
This is a very side project for us.
I mean, less so now that I'm lost my job.
I'm so sorry about that.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a long story.
But our best stuff is actually on our Patreon.
It's true.
We've got some really good stuff there. Yeah.
I believe it.
I'm glad that you guys were persistent.
Yeah.
And reached out to us. Thank you.
This was
I
fun.
apologize for making it so difficult.
Yeah. I apologize for not being here at the time.
Yeah, Andrew's been having internet issues and falling in and out. But you know what? It's fine. He's, been here when it counts. And we've got 2 guests. So that
they don't need me.
The conversation alive.
2 guests who also have their own podcast. So we can talk way too much.
Oh, man. Well, that feels like as good a segue as any. Just to the end of the show here. Unless people have anybody got real strong closing thoughts they feel like they got to get out there?
Nope.
No.
Yeah.
My only dumb closing thought that I just looked down at my notes. So I'm sorry, I'm going to loop back around. But so the albums always list like what is the theme for this episode? And in the 2003 release of the episode, the theme was standing up for your faith. But in 2010, it was changed to respecting authority.
Oh. Whoa.
Which is such a Obama era.
Oh man!
Like I don't know. I don't know what was happening here because I think the standing up for your faith is a more true embodiment of what this episode is trying to do. But
yes,
I like that they reframed it to be respecting authority, just to submit that the Wit and Connie nightmare is canon.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's yucky.
Yeah,
I feel a little blindsided by that. Like I want to dig into it, but I just also feel like so surprised by how authoritarian that is.
Yeah, but I mean, should you?
No, I shouldn't. But it's just like such a big shift from like standing up for what you believe in, which I agree is more the focus of the episode, because basically the message that we get at the end is like, if authority is telling you to do something that you don't believe is right, you shouldn't do it. But also there is like a line of thought of like, you need to respect the authority of the Christians, like Wit, you know, like those in Christian leadership above you.
Right.
But yeah, it just doesn't feel like that's what this episode is about. And
I would argue it's about choices.
Right.
It's right there. Well played.
The title is at odds with the description.
But I feel like describing it that way is them like trying to reframe it.
Yeah.
Right? It's them trying to give you kind of like plant these seeds of thinking about it differently and thinking about like respecting authority differently. Because in the end, she says no to authority.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. It's Phil Lawler looking at this, you know, whatever that was, 20 years later and going, man, I did not come at this hard enough, did I? Let me just change the notes here to make it seem like, you know, it aligns more with my worldview now.
Yeah.
Which, has only gotten more crazy.
Yeah, which is very disappointing to me. I think because we've only listened to the older episodes, I think I had this optimism that, like, as the rest of us have kind of, like, opened up our worldviews and, like, understandings and, like, broadened our minds a little bit, I was like, Adventures in Odyssey, I'm sure we'll do the same thing, and it's not. It's just doubling down.
No, it's a product of Focus on the Family, which is like,
we're very familiar. So in our Patreon, we're going through the Christy Miller series, which you may or may not be familiar with because you guys are pretty young.
Say, I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So when I was a teenager,
way back when,
actually they were also written in the 80s. And they were popular until probably the end of the 90s because they did like a re-release of them when I was a tween/teen. So they were the books that all the Christian girls were reading. They're Christian romance novels. And it basically about how to have a like godly, high school aged Christian relationship. It's like
gosh.
This girl, Christy, and she meets this guy, Todd, and he's like a surfer. And
these are all targeted at the girls reading it, right?
Yes,
Cries and sex education.
Not any boys, but we do have a boy on our panel going through it with us who was, he was a similar age as us, and the girls that he was trying to date were reading these books, and he's understanding a lot more about what was going on then.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And the weird mixed messages he was getting, because the book is very like, like you can't date, but you can be friends, but you're basically dating, but you're not allowed to call it dating. And like, don't lead boys on, but also don't ever tell them if you like them because they need to make the first move, it just fucked up a whole bunch of us. So
that is,
and that's a Focus on the Family product. Surprise.
Nice. Love to see it.
We're also wanting to do a thing that is focus on the family.
Where we talk fun. Yeah, where we talk more about Focus on the Family specifically, but limited time.
Yeah.
All right. So you've touched on some stuff already, but kind of wrap this up. What do you guys have to promote? I'll link whatever you want in the show notes, but if you want to shout some stuff out here on air too, that'd be great.
Yeah, we have, obviously, as you've all heard, we have a podcast, Adventures in Ideology, that just explores evangelical ideologies and some of the toxic things that we believed or were taught or learned growing up through the eyes of Adventures in Odyssey episodes. We also have a Patreon that we have discussed briefly where we get to delve deeper into other evangelical things. We went through some of my notes and stuff from Bible college, so that's kind of a fun thing. And the Christy Miller series and Christian movies, and we just do a lot of kind of that kind of thing. So for people who are deconstructing or just exploring different ideologies, it's kind of a fun place to land. And you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at Ideology Podcast. And Patreon is Adventures in Ideology. And we have a website as well, Adventures in Ideology. And yeah, if you want to contact us, Instagram, I guess, is the best way to do it.
It's pretty effective for me, too. So,
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thank you so much for coming out and doing this podcast. This was a real fun time.
Yeah, fun. Thanks for having us.
Always like unpacking Odyssey, and it's fun to do it with people who have some experience there.
Yeah, definitely.
We look forward to having you guys on our podcast soon.
Oh, it'll be a delight.
Yeah,
it'll be delightful.
All right, and that concludes our final episode of this year, not including the Christmas special. So no more regular Tuesday episodes this month, folks, but we will be back on or around Christmas with, a special, probably a guest. Still working that one out. But until then, bye.
Feliz Navidad.
Bye.
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 Wad Fam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at wadfamchalkpod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. Choices was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Acebo, with special guests Candace and Charis. It was edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wad Fam Chalk Pod.